welcome to Covey Wellness Center podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Joy Covey. I am the clinical director and owner of Covey Wellness Center, which is a group psychotherapy practice and wellness bookshop and center located in rural small town Ontario. And we are here today to chat with two of our amazing therapists here on site about desired outcomes and goals and what the difference is and why it matters, which one you're working towards and how they work in a therapy session. And so we're going to be exploring that topic and helping people think about what might be helpful to them as they set their intentions for the year and figure out what they are wanting to accomplish or move towards. So I'm going to let each of the therapists here introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about them. As most of you know, if you've been listening to the last few recordings that we've done, this is really just an opportunity for us to let you get to know us a little bit better, and also for us to provide some value to you in the experience and the understanding that we have. And so we're hoping that at the end of this, you sort of have a better sense of me and Karen and Tom, but also that you feel that you have some good next steps and some good things to think about, and maybe some things that'll apply right to where you are in your life. And so that's what we're here for at Covey Wellness Center, to support you in that movement forward. So I'm going to start with Karen, and I'm going to ask Karen just to give us a little intro and let you know who she is, and then we'll go right to Tom after that.
Thanks, Sarah. I love being here, and I love being here with you guys. And I love talking about solution-focused brief therapy. And it's a pleasure to be working with such an amazing team at Covey, and to be working with such profoundly amazing clients. Mm-hmm. So thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Mm-hmm. And as you said, I'm Tom. And we talked about in the last podcast as well that my framework that I work from as a therapist here at Covey Wellness Center is as well solution-focused brief therapy. And that's kind of a conversation we're going to continue a bit of what we already talked about last time. So I'm excited to have this conversation. And as you said, Sarah, to give some value and give some insight that you can apply to your own life outside of a therapy session, outside of coming to meet with us, to get the ball rolling in moving through the challenges you're facing in life.
Yeah, and the great thing about these podcasts is if you're really intrigued by this modality or want to explore more, you can reach out to Covey Wellness Center and look to work with Tom or Karen, and get something started as far as taking this to the next level. So we're going to whet your appetite for that, but we know you're going to want to connect with us further, whether it's an upcoming podcast or online or through some therapy. We are here for you. I'm really excited too, because solution-focused brief therapy is something I know about, but it's not the modality I primarily work from. So I'm always learning from clinicians at the center when we have these conversations, and I find them really fascinating. So you'll see me getting very excited about what they're saying, because it'll perhaps be new to me or nuanced to me in a way that I'm learning right alongside of our listeners. So super excited to dive right in. So I think with the focus on the difference between desired outcomes and goals, I think the logical first question is, what is the difference? So who wants to start us off there?
Yeah, I can start us off there. I think the first thing I would want to say is that when we talk about the difference between a goal and a desired outcome, that they're not competing forces. It's not that like all these years you've been making goals and you've been doing the wrong thing. Goals are good. Goals are fine, and they're helpful in moving towards a desired outcome. But the difference in a desired outcome, or in identifying a desired outcome, is that the desired outcome connects to meaning for us. So when we make a goal, we have a plan to reach a summit, let's say. But ultimately, what's behind that goal, what's motivating that goal, is what we call the desired outcome. And especially now, I think this conversation is appropriate because we're coming out of the New Year's resolution season, right, and maybe entering the first real challenges of whatever resolutions we've made, and entering into, even if you follow the Christian tradition, entering into Lent, which is, again, kind of another aspect of setting goals for ourselves in giving up something for Lent. And that can be really tough and really discouraging when those goals get really hard to achieve. And so the difference with the desired outcome is we're asking ourselves and digging deeper into what is the motivation behind this goal? What difference do I hope that it will make for me and for my life?
Right. So it really sounds like it matters, because if your motivation is not aligned with meaning for you, and I know I've been doing some studying around this too, Karen, you and I have worked through a bit of a course with Matthias J. Barker, who you should all follow on the internet. You follow on Instagram, which is on the internet, and he's got some amazing content, and he's like a TikTok superstar. So for all you millennials out there, you'll love him. But really looking at like, where is the motivation for our goal? And if the motivation for our goal is shame-based or externalized in some way, it's not going to be sustainable, because we have to stay in the shame in order to continue to have the energy, or like the motivation comes from living in a space of shame all the time. Whereas it sounds like a desired outcome is really more from that meaning-making, value-centered place that says, this is for this eventual outcome or this vision of my life that I want to work towards. And so the motivation comes from like a positive, sustained, visioned, imagined future for yourself that is, much more sustainable in terms of motivation, because you don't have to live into that space. Does that make sense? Karen, maybe you can comment on that, because you know what I'm talking about with that course.
Yeah, and I want to say also, Tom, that was a great lead in. That was amazing. And Sarah, you're absolutely right with that. So this is a model of transformation, right? That it's about being in this place here. And I want to get to this place here that's really meaningful to me. So, and you really touched on it too when you spoke about the external motivation versus an internal. So, and something that's external to me, I can't necessarily control. But if I can get to a point where I can see where I want to be aligning with what is so deeply meaningful to me, that really matters, then whether the storms come or blow, whether goals come and go, that place I want to get to is steady. It's an anchor. And so it becomes a place where I think of a compass. So whether you're using a compass out on the water because you want to go across a beautiful lake, or you want to go into a forest and you want to know where you are, you want to
stay true to your,
I don't want to just go aimlessly wherever. I want to go somewhere that's really meaningful to me. And so our job is to help our clients get to figure out a desired outcome that's really aligning with what's deeply, deeply meaningful to them. They don't have to remember it then, because it's just part of who they are. They just know.
Right.
And so
comes from that core.
Yeah. Yeah. They might come in and say, well, I'd really like to win $1 million. I want to have a business that will get me $1 million. And the question would be, what difference would that make in your life to have $1 million?
Right.
Well, if I had $1 million, I could, do this and this and this. And if you could do that and that and that, what would be most meaningful to you? And well, then my kids and I could travel to a beach each year and have a great experience. And so imagine that you're at that beach having that great experience. What's the outcome of that you really want to savor? Oh, well, just to experience my family, like they're just so treasured. And so you realize then it's not, their desired outcome is not really the $1 million.
No.
It's to be able to spend quality time.
Yeah.
To be able to pour themselves into something so meaningful, training up their children or spending valuable time.
Creating memories, all that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's interesting as you're saying that is you can see how when it's aligned, I mean, when we think about the habits or goals that we've had, that we've crushed, that we've managed to sustain, you can probably trace those right back to a desired outcome that motivated it, right? Like even when I think about our growth here at Covey Wellness Center, there have been so many things that could have derailed what has happened here for sure on my journey. And I feel very called to this though, and it's so aligned with my desire to really provide help for people, as many people as we can, with amazing therapists who I can trust, with the people that were, coming to me that I didn't have room in my schedule to see. And there's this deep sense of calling and alignment. And so all the goals I haven't really even had to think about them, because they're just it's just happening because of that congruence, right? And so I think that's what we're getting at. But the other thing that came to mind, and I don't know if I hope I'm not derailing us here, but I think this is relevant. I think people have this version of transformation that is sort of that, graph where it's like a straight line in this direction. And the truth is it's in that direction, but it looks more like this. And you're eventually heading to that desired outcome, but that linear, no blips, no dips, no derailment, no obstacles. That's not what it looks like ever. Anybody who's ever crushed a goal, I'm using that sort of common language, although I really don't normally use that language. They know that it's little failures and successes and setbacks and forward, and it's all over, but it's all in this trajectory towards that. So those goals might not work as well because they're squirreling around, but if you have that desired outcome and you're still making your way. I don't know if you guys can visualize that. I'm kind of using my hands, but is that making sense what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And that's right on track with kind of where we go with this in a session as well, because looking at the desired outcome, identifying together the desired outcome, it moves things away from the binary, the single task oriented win-lose outcome.
Success, failure. Yeah.
Right. I mean, let's go back to the classic New Year's resolution thing. Like this is my New Year's resolution. And by February, if we haven't done it every single day, I want to go for a run every single day. If I miss one day, then all of a sudden I've given up on my New Year's resolution. But looking and identifying the desired outcome, it increases hope and it increases opportunity in aiming for forward movement, because then it opens up the possibility, like you said, of kind of that squirrely experience of, here's our desired outcome. Maybe my desired outcome is to not be out of breath in 5 minutes.
Right.
And my goal was to run every day, but that feels impossible when there's snowstorms and ice storms and all that stuff. Yeah. But if I see that desired outcome, that I just want to be healthier and live a longer, more active life, then I can throw in new opportunities there of, maybe I'll go and play soccer. Maybe I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Kangoo. Maybe I'll go do Kangoo.
Kangoo.
Oh, that's a whole nother.
That's another podcast.
It's like moon boots. Remember moon boots?
Yeah.
Moon shoes. It's like that, but for adults. Yeah.
Wow.
It's
kangaroo. But, wow. Okay. Tangents. Okay. Bring us back though. Yeah.
Point being that it opens up the opportunity for all these different ways of achieving that desired or moving towards that desired outcome. And it's no longer that win or lose, that binary, it has to be this way or it has to be this way.
It removes that rigidity, right? And we talk a lot about like dichotomous thinking, that black or white, this or that thinking being really unhelpful in, across the boards in our relationships, mental health, all of it, right? So in our goal setting, it's kind of like the person who's like, also, I'm going for a run first thing in the morning, and they miss their run in the morning. They're like, well, that's it till tomorrow. Right. Well, actually, you could go for a walk later this afternoon, or you could go to do this Kangoo stuff. And, I love what you said. You said there's it increases hope and the opportunities for other ways to move forward.
Mhm.
right? So there's this sense in which I have this desired outcome. This is the goal I've set, but even if that goal doesn't work out or can't align for today, I'm not derailed. I can pivot. I can switch it up. I can take opportunity of this indoor activity, even though the outdoor goal can't be accomplished. So it gives you so much more room for that movement. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah,
What are
it
your
really
thoughts on that, Sarah?
it underscores the difference between a desired outcome and a goal. When Tom gave the example of, the client at first thinks, well, my desired outcome is to have, to be able to do this and have better breath. But really, then he said, well, it's to live the longer life. And what's
Yeah.
behind the longer life? Well, so that I can make an impact on my family, on, leave a legacy, whatever is more existentially meaningful to them. And so
Mhm.
the goals can come and go. Maybe today, in fact, the goals are stepping stones.
Mhm.
Yeah, and absolutely they'll shift, but as long as my compass is set on that desired outcome, exactly, as I sort of meander and the storms of life will blow me, or a squirrel will cross my path and off I'll
Yeah.
go. But I can tell when I'm in alignment by being able to say, okay, let's say that ultimately I want to live a life of peace. I want to
Mm.
experience peace. I can tune in to my body. I can
Mhm.
tune in to my response to others. I can tune in to their response to me.
Mhm.
Say, I'm getting off course here. And so I might even be still carrying out my goals, but I'm off course.
Right.
Right. And so it's that anchor that I'm always going to head towards. And in our therapy, we have a desired outcome for the session, and then
Mhm.
a larger desired outcome for the therapy. And
Mhm.
so within each session, when clients appear, they know that in different ways, I'm going to tap into, what is your best hope for this session? What's the
Mhm.
desired outcome? When we get to the end of this session, just imagine that we're sitting here together at the end, and you've arrived at something really meaningful to you that makes
Mhm.
this time worthwhile. You're so glad you were here. And now all of a sudden, it's no longer just about, oh, what do I talk about? I know I've had stressors this week, and
Mhm.
I feel, I need some. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, something really meaningful to me.
Mhm.
And it's amazing how quickly it grounds the session. And we're going to head
It directs
toward
it.
it.
Yeah.
And that links to the larger desired outcome of their life.
Right. It's like the session is its own micro version of what you're trying to teach them in their lives, where they're motivated in broad strokes by these larger existential, meaningful, desired outcomes in their life. I want to have a close relationship with my partner, and so this is like, how do we in this session move you in this microcosm towards that kind of a goal. And also makes me think that you have the ability to release goals that aren't serving you anymore.
Mhm.
So I was thinking about that, like a simple story of mine is I decided to try and learn to run when I left teaching to go into my master's program. I said, I'm going to do a Couch to 5K. And I did that. And to make a very long story short, I realized that I had Hashimoto's disease as a result of doing that. And I had this goal that I was running every day, but it was actually, and the goal was to become healthier. And I thought I was doing all these things, but then my body was not responding well to that goal. But I didn't let go of that goal because I thought I just got to keep to the program. I didn't have the flexibility to say, wait a second, my body isn't responding well to this. And I can say that in hindsight now because I know way more about what was going on. But at the time, I was not listening to my body wisdom. I was not attuned to like the greater, goal of just really getting more in alignment with my health. And actually, I was making my health worse by running because I was flaring it. So when you have a desired outcome, that's vitality and care for my body so that I can be there for my people. Okay, well then that becomes, I don't have to finish the running program now. I can pivot and do gentle exercise. I can do yoga. I can switch to walking and recognize that that's actually more aligned. And so I think it gives you that freedom to drop what's not working. Is that making sense too?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
lovely. And it comes back to your, breaking that dichotomous thing and now stepping into divergent options.
Yes.
And we can even measure and see what are the different options to a dilemma. Perhaps someone wants to make a change in career. Well, they've got different interests.
Right.
So we can take on is going to align with that desired outcome. This option heads over here, this option here, this option here, and what's going to resonate most. And it doesn't necessarily mean one's right or one's wrong,
Right.
but an alignment. And I really like to bring it back to use of the body, because we are, as holistic human beings, we are mind and body and soul and spirit. So this body doesn't just transport us from point A to point B. It communicates to us through sensations, through intuition, and it can let us know if we really learn to attune to it.
Like we can release the shame there too, right? Like that failure point, right? And I think that's so important for people that, let's say you started a New Year's resolution at the beginning of January and now it's middle of February, and you're thinking to yourself, like I'm a failure, and you go into a shame cycle because you haven't ran every day, of the week from January to this point, or whatever those parameters were. Even if that goal was not realistic or serving you well, you still go into like that negative feedback loop of the shame. And so with this, looking at desired outcomes, it's not shame, it's realignment.
Yes.
Right? It's not failure, it's adjustment, right? And it's this understanding that our lives are a constant, intentional paying attention to what we need and course correcting. Like, we're not going to have anytime, and again, just going back to my example, because I just shared it, but if I think this program is it, and that's it for me, and I can't think outside that program because I've decided I'm doing a Couch to 5K, come hell or high water, as my mother would say, right? Then even if that's not serving me well, I can't quit that program, even that language, quit that program, without feeling like a complete failure. Instead of recognizing my body wisdom is saying, this isn't helping me. This isn't good for me. It's not working. And I can readjust and keep that hope alive, which is what, Tom, you were alluding to before. So maybe talk a bit more about that if you can, Tom.
Well, I kind of talking about that, but a little sidetrack too. Another kind of benefit of identifying the desired outcome and finding meaning in that is even that it opens up the opportunity to build hope by also looking at how that desired outcome has appeared in our past. And this is a whole nother conversation, talking about the history of that outcome in our lives. But again, it serves to, so many times people come into sessions saying like, my goal is to stop having anxiety. And we want to, and in identifying a desired outcome, we want to flip that into a positive. So what do you want instead? What do we want instead? Well, I want to be calm. I want to be free. I want to have peace. And so then we start, what difference would that make? As we were talking before, what difference would that make in your life? And we break that down, and then it's that experience of happiness and contentment. And then we have that opportunity, because if that's the desired outcome, that desired outcome comes from somewhere. If we're not just pulling it out of left field, our desired outcomes, they come from our past experiences, even just a little bit. Even if we feel like I've never actually felt happy and content. Well, how do you know what you want then? So it comes from somewhere in our life. And when we focus on the desired outcome rather than the goal of not having anxiety anymore, we open up this opportunity of hope of being able to look then at where, even just the smallest little bit, where that contentment and that happiness has showed up in our life and what we were doing differently at that time.
Right.
And then that gives us, again, it gives us a broader example, a broader opportunity to build in those things in our life that were present when we were feeling happiness and contentment, even that little bit
Of
in the
insight.
past.
You're
Right.
drawing from those strengths. And I know, Karen, you talk about that a lot too. It's like, how can we draw from your strengths and your resilience that you don't even maybe even know you have? Because, that expression, what is it? You've survived every one of your hard days so far. So somehow you did something right. Somehow you got from A to B, and you're still here, and you're still striving to care for yourself. So there are elements of that we can ground into and empower. Right? Is that making sense too?
Yeah. And like, if my goal is I want to be free from anxiety, I've maybe have never been free from anxiety in my life. But even as I've endured anxiety, if my desired outcome is happiness and contentment, there's some level of happiness and contentment that was present there. So
even
that
with
goal,
the anxiety.
Right. And so having that goal of not being free from anxiety, it feels impossible. It feels overpowering. But when we can look at what's the desired outcome behind that goal, then that opens up more opportunity and hope.
And does it also recognize that being free from anxiety is maybe not even always a realistic goal? Like, we all live with a certain amount of anxiety. And so how is that both and, right? How can we live with our anxiety and still experience peace, or move ourselves from anxiety to peace, or find our way to doing hard things that we're anxious about, but find our way through that with resilience and grit, and come to the other side of it and say, like, even though I had anxiety about X, Y, or Z, I was able to activate, ground myself, work my tools, move through that, and see success. Because sometimes that goal, like, I'm totally done with it, I want no anxiety in my life. Well, you have to kind of evaluate the reality of that too. And what they think is that the anxiety is preventing them from having the life they want, instead of realizing I can have the life I want and manage my anxiety and grow, and still, the both and. Any thoughts on that, Karen?
Yeah, I love that. And the other thing is, the way I look at it, anxiety is not a bad thing.
No.
Imagine your life if you were not capable of having anxiety. Right? Think of the dangerous things that would befall us if we had no radar for things that might be problematic. And so
or dangerous.
have curiosity about it, and be able to, so again, yes, not that dismissive pushing against resistance that actually elevates the fight or flight, pushing away, but instead being able to coexist with it. And as Tom said, notice, wow, how did I do that in the past? I know I've always had this anxiety present. And now how can I befriend anxiety? Right? And make use of it, so that I'm able to focus on my strengths, focus on the things that are positive. Some people may perceive solution-focused therapy as being positive, rah. We don't look at the difficult things in life. We absolutely look at the difficult things in life. We hold space for the difficult things. We sit with, not in, but with the emotion of those difficult things. And we bring in the strengths, talents, giftings, all of the abilities that we've leveraged in the past that tell us this problem is not bigger than we are.
Right.
And so we can learn to play with, have fun, and enjoy some of the challenges that come along, that you might think would lead to hopelessness. But
Right.
indeed, some of the deeper challenges present an option, the greatest potential for hope.
Mm. It's like this authentic, like, resiliency, or this, people are concerned about being too surface, or too, I think the name, like, solution focused brief therapy, I think the name itself, like, is kind of misleading, because it's sort of like, come in, I'll fix you, and then you can go. Right. And that's not what it is at all. It's very authentic and empowering. It's this genuine empowerment from the place you're at to face your challenges with resilience. But that's not without pain, and that's not a toxic positivity spin or reframe on it. It's, we're going there, we're here with you, but you can do the hard things, and here's some pathways forward. So that's so interesting to think about. Like, again, just to clarify, sometimes people think by a name of something, it is, you got to go deeper to really understand the modality. So that's so important. That's awesome. I'm just mindful of our time here, and we usually like to wrap up and keep these episodes, within reason, so people can pop them in on their commute and get through them. Any final thoughts from our conversation today that are just percolating with each of you to kind of wrap us up?
I think the important thing in this is, so what? And talking about like that value to take away from this. I think the challenge sometimes what I tell my clients is in trying to identify, because it can be hard work sometimes to identify what's the desired outcome that's deeper in me, that has meaning for me. Mm-hmm. And if you, in journaling practice, or even on your commute, talking to yourself alone in your car, if there's a goal, there's something that you want to accomplish. If it's negative, something like, I want something out of my life, then you ask, what do I want instead?
Right.
But going then beyond that, and as far as it takes, asking, what difference would it make? And then from that, what difference would that make? And what difference would that make? And see just where that stops. Sometimes It takes 2 or 3 questions of that. Sometimes it can take like 7 to finally get to that point of like, aha, this is what difference that would make for me. This is what I actually want out of this. And then using that as a jumping point to imagine. And I use that word specifically, to imagine what possibilities you have in moving towards that outcome, from your past, from your present, from your hopes for the future, imagining what possibilities there are to make that difference happen in your life. It's a good practice.
Yeah. It's kind of like that tenacious kid who's like, but why? Like, what difference would that make? Like, I'm not going to let this question go until I get the answer. And that's kind of the image that came to mind when you were describing that process. Like, don't give up on the process, because you have to peel those questions away and keep drilling down to get to that core, like, existential meaning place of, it matters to me because I want to be sitting on a beach with my kids making memories and create this life that feels like family to me, something like that. Right. So really persevering with that. And I will just interject there before we hear from Karen too, that's a great thing to do with the help of a therapist. I mean, sometimes it is hard to do that on your own, and you might only get so far. You might have some blind spots or some things that you can't quite articulate, but that's something where a therapist is a fabulous sounding board and a helpful processor for you to figure that out together, to help bring that clarity. And so certainly don't feel like you're on your own at all in that. That's exactly why we're here, and that's the kind of thing that we're just so excited and passionate to help you with.
Yes, Sarah, and that's entirely our goal, is that we will help them become their own therapist.
Yes.
Right. My goal always, my desired outcome for every single client is that they won't need me anymore, except to maybe come in for a check-in.
Sure.
Life blows them off course, and they want to get back on course.
But they want a realignment.
They want to, yes. And as Tom said, with the imaginal work, we do a lot of imaginal work, and to really help them to be able to do that and tap into what is already present inside them, and empower them to do more and more of it. We'll stretch out the sessions over time and do a check-in, and it's absolutely an amazing thing for me then to say, okay, so you sit in my chair as the therapist now, and then to watch them absolutely be so capable and competent to just go forward in their transformation.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, everything sounds so great. It's authentic. It's momentum forward for transformation. It's aligned with meaning. It's empowering. I mean, what's not to love about this modality? It's fabulous. And we know we do have amazing clients, as you said before, Karen. We're blessed. I just love everyone who's walking in the door here or virtually to meet with us. We're just so blessed with these amazing people, and we get the privilege of aligning with them in this process. And it's tremendously rewarding work. It's a good kind of hard. It's hard work, but it's so rewarding for us as well as, of course, the clients. And so that's what we're here for at Covey Wellness Center. So we would love for you. Our podcast is still pretty new. So if you can share and subscribe and do all the things that put the podcast on the map, that we would appreciate that. Let people know. Maybe there's somebody who is hesitant about therapy, and this might just give them a little bit of an inspiration to think about taking a next step. And so if this can be a help, please share it. It's here as a resource. We want to give back to our community, to our clients, but also beyond, people who just want to avail themselves of the things that we're all about here at Covey Wellness Center. We want to make some of that available to you. And this is one of our ways to do that. So please do. And if you are looking for a therapist or wanting to reach out with any other questions or inquiries, the best way to do that is on the Covey Wellness Center website. You can click the contact us, and there's a very simple form that you fill out, and that puts you in touch with our administration team, and then they'll be in touch with you. So that's the simplest way. Or if you're local, drop into the Wellness Bookshop. It's open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and Saturday, 9 to 3. And you're welcome to come and see us and talk to somebody on the front desk. And we'd love for you to come and check out the space as well. And that's open to the public, whether you're a client or not. You can just come right on in. We're here for everybody. So I think with that, we're going to close up our session. That was really great insight. I love that discussion. I've already percolated on my own goals and desired outcomes and what I need to tweak to be in alignment. And so I really appreciate your insight. And I look forward to future conversations. We're going to have some other conversations along the way together in different variations, sometimes just with Karen, sometimes with Tom and Karen again. So stay tuned for those episodes as well. And for now, we will say have a fabulous day and take good care.